So right now, let's work on a new requirement. We'd like to list the passengers for a specific flight instance, and we want this list to be in PDF format. We'll fulfill this requirement by using a procedure, since the requirement allows us to design a layout where we'll specify the attributes we want to display. Let's define a new procedure object. Right-click New Object, and we'll call it Passengers List. This procedure will receive the flight instance ID through the parm rule, and will obtain the passengers list for that flight instance. So first, we'll define the flight instance ID variable. We save the changes, and in the Rules tab, we declare the parm rule. Parentheses, in, we're taking in entry parameters here, flight instance ID, and I save. Let's look at this Layout tab. We'll start designing this procedure's output based on these print blocks. So let's open the toolbox, and first we'll add a label which will say Passengers List. It will be our list's title. So I close the toolbox and press F4, and we edit the properties. And for the text property, we'll enter Passengers List. We'll change the font type, and we'll make its color red. And let's also change this print box title. So to do that, we hit F4, and we change the default name Print Block 1, which GeneXus assigns automatically as we insert new print blocks, and we'll call it Title. We save, and let's add a new label, which we'll use to display the flight instance. So we insert the variable, we insert the text, sorry. Call it flight instance. And here we'll insert the variable which we received as a parameter. It will display the identifier for this flight instance. And here we'll add labels which will read passenger ID and passenger name. So I add text, passenger ID, I'll make it a little bit bigger and bold. And let's add another one, passenger name. Make it bigger and bold again. And we save the changes. We'll insert a new print block where we'll add the passenger ID and passenger name attributes. In order to insert a new print block, we place our mouse pointer over here, right-click, insert print block, and here we have our new print block. We'll edit its properties with F4, and we'll call it Passengers. And here we'll insert the passenger ID and passenger name attributes. We can also edit the properties of these two. So I'll change the font. Move these around to make it look nicer. Let's figure out, I save the changes first, and let's figure out what code we'll need to write this procedure in this procedure source tab in order to get the list we want. First of all, we will want to print the print box title. So let's use the print command and our print box title, print box name, which is title. And now we'll have to declare a for each and define that we want to obtain all the passengers for the flight instance we're receiving as a parameter. So I use the for each where, and what will our condition be? Our condition will be that the flight instance ID attribute is equal to what we are receiving as a parameter, which is the flight instance ID variable. Now we will declare what we want to do with this flight instance. Well, we want to display its passengers. We want to access all records related to this flight instance record we are positioned in that are stored within the flight instance passenger table, which corresponds to the second level of our flight instance transaction. So we declare a new for each, and we can use the code snippets if we want, or we can type for each. And here we'll say print our passengers print block. We save our changes and we're done with our procedure source. When we have a structure of nested for each clauses like we have here, GeneXus will determine the base table of each for each. First, it will determine the base table for the outermost for each, and then the base table for the inner for each. In this case, we are using the print command within the inner for each, but this print command refers to our print block, which includes attributes. So those attributes will be taken into account when determining the base table for this inner for each. So let's modify some of the object's properties in order to view its output as a PDF. So to do this, we'll press F4 and we'll set the following properties for object. Report output needs to be only to file. Then we need to declare this as a main object, so I'll set this to true. And we need to set the protocol to HTTP. And aside from these properties, we also need to enter a rule, the output file rule. So I'll declare it here, output file, parentheses, and between quotes, we enter the name of our object. Passengers list. comma, and also, between quotes, the format, which will be PDF. We close parentheses and semicolon. We save the changes, and we've set all our properties and rules so that we'll be able to display this procedure as a list. We create a web panel that will pass the flight instance ID as a parameter, and that will call this object. So let's create a new object, a web panel. We'll call it WP Passengers List. On this web panels form, we will have a text box displaying the flight instance ID, and we'll declare a variable as a dynamic combo box that will list the values of the flight instance identifiers. Then we'll add a button which will call our procedure. Here we'll type Passengers List. Then we can select this text, and using the menu bar, we can change its appearance. For example, color. And here, we'll insert a table. We open the toolbox, and we drag the table here, and it will be 1 row and 2 columns. Into one of the cells, we'll insert the variable, and it will be displayed as a dynamic combo box. So here, let's first create a variable, and we return to our web form. And we'll drag a variable control into our table's first cell. So we'll insert the flight instance ID variable, and now we'll select a button control and drag it into the second cell. We close our toolbox and we'll edit this button's properties. For a caption, we'll enter View Passengers List. And now we'll define the code that will be associated to the enter event, which will be triggered when we press the button. So let's close the toolbox. And if we right-click the button, we select Go to Event, and here we'll declare the call to our procedure object. To insert an object, we go to Insert Object, we filter for procedure objects, and we select our passengers list. And then use the call function, and between parentheses, we'll pass our parameter, which will be a variable, flight instance ID. We save the changes, and we still need to change our variable's appearance so it will display as a dynamic combo box. So we'll edit its properties, and we look for the control type property, and we'll set it to dynamic combo box. So it will be storing the values corresponding to flight instance ID, and for the descriptions, we'll also display flight instance ID. We save the changes and close this. In order to run our application, it won't be enough to just press F5 because we have a procedure object that's been defined as main, our passengers list procedure. So we'll have to compile this object separately, not together with the rest of our application. So to do this, we'll click the Build menu of our menu bar and we'll use this option, Build. This option we use does not run the developer menu. It simply builds and compiles our passengers list object, as we can see here. So we close, and now we can hit F5. We open our work panel, and here we can see the list of flight instances we've entered. So here we can select one,